think we should just go ahead and start, and I'll try to keep an eye on the chat room and the invites and make sure everyone's in. Welcome, everyone. I hope you enjoyed another glorious Michigan fall day in these times that continue to be extraordinary by anybody's measure. I think that's a fair statement. Can everyone hear me nicely? Yes, good. You're all on mute for the time being, which I appreciate very much. Denny, can you wave? We've got Denny Walsh and Rod Johnson, who's in his wine warehouse. He'll tell us about that momentarily. Who are going to hopefully opine from the heart about our sale, which just went live when? On Thursday. Hold tight, let me see if anyone's waiting. Yeah. And the thought is, if you could kindly keep yourself muted until I ask for questions. There'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions. And I'll ask them after we review every section on the, each section on the sale PDF, which I'll pull up in just a moment. If you ask a question, we're just going to go through it quickly because I figure this is going to take us about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And we'll hang out afterwards, but just in case anybody else needs to get off, we want to keep to the time. What else to tell you? We're very happy to have so many people participating. Right now, there are 40 people online, but we had almost 70 people sign up for this. Just a reminder, it is being recorded. Not so much for posterity, but for your use. And hopefully you get my follow-up emails and you know how to access them on our YouTube channel. So one more quick look at the waiting room. And here we go. All right. So we went live with our luxury sale on Thursday. If you haven't met us, if you're new to the Plum Market guest family, Madeline Triffon, Plum Market sommelier, happy sommelier who gets to work with Denny Walsh, who is the beverage coordinator for Oakland County, that's Bloomfield and West Bloomfield Plum Markets, and Rod Johnson, the coordinator for the Ann Arbor Plum Markets on Plymouth Road and Jackson. And we do not have Ohio participating tonight. Ohio, we don't have Illinois or Chicago store participating tonight. The sale is specific to Michigan. So as promised, everyone who's attending this tonight will get an additional discount, and we will faithfully give you the discount code at the end of the tasting. So we'll review how this works online and show you the setup on our website, in addition to going through the entire list, which is around 100 wines. Obviously, we're not going to hit every wine, but we're definitely going to talk about each category and taste, well, I'm going to taste 5 wines happily with you and talk about those specifically. Any questions so far? We're good? Looks like you're comfy. Happy to have your company. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's the tasting order, Madeline?
The tasting order is right in the chat room, but I will repeat it. It's the Chardonnay is the first one. The second wine, which might sound counterintuitive, is the Knights Valley Cabernet. And the third wine is the Bordeaux, the Trois or 3 de Valandraud. And the fourth wine is the Cambria Pinot Noir. And the fifth wine is the PSI from the Ribera del Duero. I have a question if I can add the PDF flyer in the chat room. If one of my Plum Market tech friends is on, they might be able to do that, but I will attach it to the follow-up email and I'm going to show it on screen. You know, and I'll show you right now so you can see what we're looking at. And I'll make sure that you get that attachment. Does everyone see this? So it's basically this page and then this page, which is the cover. This folds in half. So it's several sections and around 100 wines. And the idea is that Denny and Rod and I are going to go through and mention highlights. So why don't we go ahead and start? I feel like I should have some mood music for this, to make this exciting, but I like talking about wine. And the champagne and sparkling wine section, we didn't choose to taste anything here tonight. And if you take a look, you'll probably figure out why, because, a chunk of them are premium. And the one that I want to bring to your attention, actually, because you've seen a lot of these in the store, they're no big surprises here, especially when you talk about Ruinart, Picola Grand Dame, Dom Perignon. The Ferraris are amazingly great buys for the money. They're Chardonnay, Blanc de Blancs, except for the Rosé and a little Pinot, and they're a state bottle from northeastern Italy. But if you're looking to give a special gift, I don't commonly move into this price zone, but I'm a massive Cru Grand Cuvée fan. And the reason for that is because I call it the Aunt Minnie and the snob wine. I mean, you could show Cru Grand Cuvée at any gathering, and it will touch people who don't drink champagne, and it will touch people who are used to, exotic, exclusive grower champagnes. It's just friendly without being fruity, and it's got a lot of depth. It's it pulls my attention every time I taste it, and it's 6 years on the leaf, so it's really special stuff. Rod and Denny, anything else you want to mention about bubbles before we move on to Chard?
I would just say that the two Ruinart wines I've always sold in the store as being the two best bottles of champagne in the store for under $100. The Blanc de Blanc is 100% Chardonnay, and the Rosé is 55% Pinot, and the rest Chardonnay. They over deliver. They're great gifts. They're always gift boxed, and they're great values at that $70 price point. And again, there's a special discount involved, which is once a year. So those would be two to consider if you have friends that are not quite as close to you as the ones that are close to Madeline.
I'd also like to add that the Dom Perignon is a brand new, just released vintage. It's the 2010. Last year we had the 2008, which was a spectacular wine. This is close on that heels. I think it's a little steelier than the 8, but certainly for those who have followed Dom Perignon, this is certainly worthy of the vast series of wines that they've had. So
and 98 points from James.
Brand new vintage.
Yeah. You know what's interesting here, price point wise, Dom Perignon is actually more of a connoisseur's champagne. It's sleeker and drier, and it's less pricey than the Cru Grand Cuvée, what I'm calling the ultra premium Aunt Minnie wine. So it's neat to see those price points. Now, I'm not talking about Cru vintage at $299.97. I was talking about the Cru Grand Cuvée at $200. Anybody have any questions about bubbles? I mean, obviously we have a big array in the stores, and those of you who shop Plum know this, that not all the stores mirror each other in terms of the wine setup. I'm going to ask a question to Rod and Denny. These wines are not all in the stores, correct? Can you overstate that and explain how this works? Because some of them are.
I think we're given. You have to give us 2 days notice for assemble the wines, because the up and down nature of the wine business, you can't always guarantee a bottle being in a store at a certain day. All of the champagnes and sparkling wines typically are in the store. But as I said, within a couple of days, we can generally get whatever wine that's on this list. So it shouldn't be a problem.
So, the reason I mention that is if you walk in, with your PDF or something we talked about today, you may or may not see it at Bloomfield versus, Plymouth Road, Ann Arbor versus West Bloomfield. It depends, but all of them are gettable. So I think we should just dive into Chard unless you gents want to say anything else.
Just strongly suggest using the PDF and ordering your wines online. That way it gives everybody a chance to have them when they pick them up.
Actually, because we're offering the 10%, it makes it a lot easier
That'll do it.
to handle that. If you come into the store with your PDF, yes, we will fill the order. We can't guarantee everybody will be there, bottle will be there, but it's not as easy to get the 10% figured out in the store as it is on the line. Here on the line, you just hit a button and it's done automatically. So just again, it's just a little easier to go through the normal process of online to make your order.
And we'll show you that a little bit later, exactly how to do that. So no worries. I mean, I'm probably the biggest techno sloth online, and here I am supposedly hosting this virtual tasting. So let's go ahead.
Madeline, this is
Yes.
Elaine. I just have a quick question. Can you
Sure.
speak about the Veuve Clicquot?
About
that's
the
listed.
Vista La Grande Dame. So this is their, this is called their Tête de Cuvée. It's as opposed to the yellow label, you know, the orange label. This is
Right.
their exclusive top of the line. It's their Dom Perignon, if you will, and it's in a special packaging. But are you wondering about the style or why it's in such a different price point than the regular Clicquot?
I just want to know how's it different from the,
From the
The
regular,
brut-
from the brut.
yes.
It's, you know, it's, you know, if you were to taste them side by side, the Clicquot yellow label is just delicious. It's easy drinking, you know, you can pay attention to it or not. It's relatively soft. In my opinion, the La Grande Dame is just you immediately recognize the quality of it when you smell it. It's got layers of complexity. It's a little bit drier and it's deep and long. And the flavor just goes on, you know, for days. It's a special bottle of wine. You know, the La Grande Dame, as opposed to, let's say, the Krug that we talked about, or the Dom Perignon, of all of those, the Dom Perignon, I think, is the sleekest and the driest. And the La Grande Dame is quite friendly. Gents, you want to add anything about that?
This is the first vintage that it was 96% Pinot Noir.
So it's, wow, it's a Blonde de Noir for all practical purposes.
Yep.
Well, now it is a Blonde de Noir with the exception of a splash of Chardonnay. So
Correct.
it's pretty deep and serious in terms of the flavor, but not, you know, excessively acidic. Okay,
Thank you.
I hope that helps. Let's go on to Chardonnay. And before we taste the Matthiasson, which some of you may have, Denny or Rod, do you want to touch on any of these?
Well, I'm enjoying a bit of the 216 Rose Rock from the Aola Amity Hills. This is a Drouin wine, and this Chardonnay has a little bit of age on it. It's very European in style. Fantastic bottle of wine. We were fortunate to get the last of the 216 at a special price because the 17 was moved to wholesaler. And at $19.97, it's really a great bottle of European style Chardonnay from Oregon. It's got plenty of life on it, and it drinks like $1 million.
And this is made by, you know, Dominique Drouin. This is the
Right.
Drouin family who are known for Burgundy, Drouhin. And their Rose Rock Chardonnay and Pinot to me are just staggering values. This is gorgeous. I mean, it really is white Burgundy in style. Rod, do you want to mention anything in particular here with the Chardonnay?
I know there's a lot of buyers out there who want to make that savvy pick. I'd call your attention to the Bruno Colin Bourgogne Chardonnay. That's a producer mainly in Chassagne-Montrachet. And so his Bourgogne, which is a blend, it's a blend of mainly Chassagne-Montrachet and Saint-Aubin vines. They average about 30 years, staged in oak for about a year in big oak. So you get that same style of Chassagne, not quite the intensity, but it's a beautiful white, classic white Burgundy. If you look at this list, we hit all of the styles though. We hit the the big California style. We hit the new emerging California style, which is more European. We have the European wines here too, the very classic ones. Probably the most special one here is that Joseph Drouhin Clos de Mouche, which is a special vineyard. It's a Bon Premier Cru, but really it comes across like a Grand Cru. Very sleek, elegant, nice, sophisticated oak, but it has that nice feel of like a Corton Charlemagne. But
And
we hit all of the styles here. Are we ready to go on with the
we're gonna taste the Matthiasson, but I also want to bring this because this is my sweetheart, the Pouligny Montrachet Premier Cru Foletier Paul Pernod. And $100 may sound like a lot, but getting, you know, estate bottled single vineyard Pouligny at that price point is damn near impossible. If you try to buy Sauzet in that price point, it would be, I don't know what, pushing $200 or at least in the mid 100s. This is a guy who doesn't use new oak, who has natural wine production, and whose Macon is just killer. Lots of minerality. And what we're going to do is go to the Matthiasson right now and taste it. But I will tell you, you can see from looking at this this list that we really intentionally went for, you know, accessible luxury and also things that are special indeed in terms of gift giving, or if you want to just treat yourself. So, you know, the price points, the wines really overperform in their various price points. The Matthiasson, which is the first wine we're going to taste. Oh my God, you're going to talk about this too, aren't you, Rod? Do you have this in your glass? I tasted it
Yes, I do.
about an hour ago.
This is one of those up and coming stars, and he's a cult star. Steve Matthiasson. They've been there since 2003.
There's Oak Knoll right there.
Yeah, the Linda Vista vineyard is down by the city of Napa.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fairly cool region. But still, in terms of, let's say, France, it's going to be warm in most regions of France.
But San Francisco's down here, so it gets fog from San Pablo Bay, right? And
Yeah.
there's the fog. Yeah.
And his background is he likes to do classic wine, so he does a Chardonnay and a Cabernet, but he likes Italian whites, so he does a Ribolla Gialla and a red wine, Refosco. Having had this wine, it's a shocker. I think in a blind tasting, you would think that it's obviously a French white wine with oak. It tastes like a Chablis or a Rouy or a Montagny out of France. That's because I don't believe it's been oak, but I'm not sure of that part though. But it has that nice lemon tang to it.
Actually, I've got the stats here, and he's not talking about oak use, but I'm with you on that lemon tang, a little bit of sort of a lemon curd. But if you gave this to me blind, I'd put it in the old world. It's mouth-watering.
Yeah.
The oak is integrated if there is oak on it.
He has a very deft touch. It's only 12.5% alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
He is known for that. I believe he's a former James Beard winner as a winemaker. So he really a current star, but doesn't have quite the fame as some others. But if you talk to anybody in the industry, everybody will tell you Matthiasson's one of the top guys out there.
And, you know, I mean, at a pretty sexy price too, because a lot of Chardonnays that think highly of themselves soar into the 40s and even the 50s. I'm going to go back to the PDF so we can look at the list. Does anybody want to, you're all so well behaved and elegant. Does anyone want to ask any questions about the Chardonnays? You know, we've got Oregon, we've got several California. I was supposed to research Moon Tsai, which is a hip new kid on the block, and I'm sorry, gents, I forgot. One of the steals in here is that Du Peuple Beaujolais Blanc that I tasted recently, and it's just beautiful, unoaked, easy drinking Chardonnay, Chablis, and you know, some special stuff down here, starting with the accessible Bruno Klein and going on up to the Pouligny and the Clos de Mouche. Everyone good? You're being so well mannered. Hopefully you know how to unmute yourself. Yes. And there's no questions in the chat room. So, okay. We did not give you any Sauvignon Blanc to taste, but we can talk through these quickly. Okay, one of you gents want to take, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be selfish and talk about the shared notes. Let's see if I can move this up, because I adore this wine. If you look here under Sauvignon Blanc, you've got, you know, some of the characters that you're familiar with: Cakebread, Spotswood, Peter Michael, Killer Wines, Cloudy Bay, a couple of Sancerres. This guy here, Shared Notes Sauvignon Blanc, which is the second most expensive wine. This is made by a woman, Bibiana Gonzalez Rave, who is married to Jeff Pizzoni, and that is Central Coast royalty in terms of Santa Lucia Highlands. And this is, she makes her own wine under a label called Cattleya, and he makes Pizzoni wines, great Pinot Noir. And this is the one wine they make together. They actually make two Sauvignon Blancs. And this one, which is called Pierre qui décide, the stones that decide, is done in a Puy Fumé style. And the other one, you'll see it in our stores occasionally, which is called the Lessons of the Masters, Les Leçons de Maître, is more in a white Bordeaux style, a little softer. So if you like sleek, you know, cutting edge Puy Fumé, this is made in that spirit, but from the Rush River Valley, and I just adore this wine. Gents, you want to opine about any of the other ones?
Well, to add on to what you just said, Madeline has mentioned many times, and the producer themselves says their favorite wine to compare this with is Chateau Haut-Brion. Haut-Brion is like $50. I've had it a couple of times. It is absolutely spectacular. For Madeline to say, and the winemaker to say this is much like that is not faint praise. The wine just has a tremendous depth, flash, passion fruit, and things like that. It gives you such an array of flavors that you're astonished that one wine can do all of that. I think we hit all of the notes here. We have New Zealand, the Cloudy Bay, the Cakebread is kind of classic. Spotswood has been a star for many, many years. That's that nice, soft, creamy melon style, which I enjoy quite a bit. And Peter Michael is very exotic in itself, and that's rare. As you can see, it's VOQ. VOQ means it's very limited quantity.
Right here.
Never that much around.
And we're not saying that just to tease you. I mean, when we say very limited quantities, and actually it should apply, and we didn't put it on to the Matthiasson Chardonnay that we tasted. You know, there's not as much floating around as we had hoped. So we're not talking, you know, several cases to be had. So, you know, there are going to be occasions on VLQ wines, including the Matthiasson, which we're going to try to get some more, where you may order it and not be able to get it. Denny, did you want to say something about the Cloudy Bay? That's a favorite.
Yeah, I would just mention on the more whimsical side, Cloudy Bay is sort of the wine from Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand that's given credit for being the pioneer. Marlborough is at the northern end of the southern of the two islands, and it's probably the exact opposite of the shared notes. It's light grapefruity, gooseberry, casual, just kind of wine my wife drinks it out of a solo cup. So it gives you an idea about the style that it is. It's the Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand are fun wines, but certainly on the casual side. And Cloudy Bay has sort of been the traditional pioneer of all that.
I mean, it's really, you know, it's kept
Consistently good.
It's consistently good. It's kept it lives up to its rep year in and year out. Rod, you want to tell us, is there any big difference between these two Sancerres? People are wondering.
Sure. Daniel Chotard is what I would call just the modern day Sancerre producer. Gives you a lot of the citrus, a little bit of passion fruit, nice grapefruit, but it's just, it kind of slaps you right in the face and wakes you up with the citrus tones. Hippolyte Reverdy is I'd say more classical producer. It doesn't jump right out. It stays in your glass and gradually opens up. A little bit of gooseberry. I think you can enjoy the show tart now until next summer. Hippolyte Reverdy is the kind of Sancerre. It will open up in your glass to be fabulous, but it will age also in the bottle, surprisingly so.
Not that anyone's going to give Sancerre any time in the bottle, but you might forget about it. I would say that the Reverdy is a little more mineral driven, a little more rocky. Would you agree with that? And a little more
Yes, it
subtle.
doesn't.
Yeah.
As I said, some people like the current style of Sancerre, which is show tart style, which is that citrus tang to it. Reverdy is more the gooseberries and minerality, so it's more the more old fashioned. I wouldn't say it's not off-putting in any way. It's just more for the I just like the undertones. Both do well with food. I think the Reverdy is a little more versatile because it will stand with a
Mhm.
richer cuisine than the show tart.
Any questions on Sauvignon Blanc? And by the way, you will have access to our email addresses on the follow-up. I give you my phone number. I won't give you their phone numbers. So you can ask all the questions that you want. I think we're going to go ahead. You know what we should do? Let's taste the Knights Valley Reserve, and that'll lead us into the Cabernet discussion. And I get points for this because we weren't going to taste Cabernet Sauvignon, and I think it's important because it's a category that everybody goes to when it comes to gift giving. And this is the Beringer Knights Valley Reserve at $40. There is a Beringer Knights Valley that is not a reserve, and that also has a black label, so it's a little bit confusing. But this is a barrel selection. I read about this today for the first time, and they produce Knights Valley yearly, but this is a blend of the best vineyard lots in a given vintage. And I love the presentation on it. And just to remind everybody what Knights Valley is, it's one of Sonoma's very many appellations. You'll notice it's quite inland from the Pacific, and it is has a mountainous effect, so it's very rocky and rather warm, and it does a great job with Zinfandel, as does the Alexander Valley, but Beringer really established it as a Cabernet producer. How many miles to the Napa winery down here?
16.
So we're talking over the mountain and down the road. So Beringer is actually in, I think, St. Helena, if I remember
Right.
correctly. So Knights Valley is in Sonoma, not in Napa, over the Mayakama. So it's kind of neat. And here, you don't get more historic in terms of a winery. This very handsome young man in his early 20s is Jacob Beringer. And then this is the Rhine House in their day. We're talking, well, I wish I had timing, but definitely pre-prohibition. And uh-oh, you can't see my screen, or no? Hold on, stop share. Let me try this again. Why did this happen? Are you not seeing my screen?
Nope.
Uh-oh, hold
Seeing
on.
the sale booklet.
Yeah, I wonder why. Okay, hold on, new share. Here we go.
Beringer has 600 acres
Mhm.
in Knights Valley.
Which is, you know, they are hands down, no contest. the
Yeah,
biggest
they sort of
producer.
established that appellation.
Right. And this has got just a little kiss of Malbec Petit Verdot in it. And when I tasted it, what I love about this is you put your nose in the glass and it is Cabernet Sauvignon. It's blackberry and also blueberry. And there's oak, but it doesn't dominate. And it is absolutely, it's plush. It's gently drying. It's smooth by anybody's measure, even though it's got a little bit of a kick to it.
Have you got a picture of Jacob Beringer?
I do. There he is.
All right, well, this is what makes this extra interesting, is the wine was made by his great-great-grandson, Mark.
That's true. Yeah.
He's the one that made this Knights Valley Reserve and adds a little bit of family tradition to the whole situation.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that they, you know, the wines from Beringer have been touched by family for, you know, going on another century, actually. I love this wine. And we're talking a pretty killer price point. So speaking of that, let's look at the other cabs. And we had a couple questions.
It's a great
Where-
visit at Behringer. They got great caves there.
I had one quick question about where this is located as opposed to Sonoma Valley. So if you look at the map of Sonoma real quick, if I can get back to it. Here is Sonoma Valley. Well, Sonoma Valley is further south. There's Sonoma Mountain. And when you talk about coastal influence for Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and sparkling wine, Green Valley, Sonoma Coast, Fort Seaview, Petaluma Gap. But as soon as you start getting inland, Dry Creek Valley, probably the most famous for Zinfandel. So it's northeastern inland appellation. And let's look at the other Cabernets that we're offering. Only did I lose? Start talking about them, gents. I lost the PDF, but I'm going to find it. No worries.
Well, I'll just jump in and talk about one of the unknown cabs here, the Fate Maine
Mhm.
Cabernet. That's not really that well known, but it's got some heft behind it. The winemaker there and owner is Benoit Touquet or Touquet.
Here we go.
Talked about Steve Matthiasson as being a superstar up and coming. Benoit Touquet's also one of those guys. He's been a consultant, Screaming Eagle, Ovid, and really all of the cool guys in the Napa Valley. Now he's got his own winery. Teeter Totter is kind of like his entry level Cabernet. It's also what I would call a kitchen sink wine. It's got Cabernet Franc, Syrah, Mourvedre, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Cabernet Sauvignon. But it's a nice, structured, solid, meaty California cab.
And drinking well young, wouldn't you say? The last time I had it, I thought it was very generous.
Delicious,
Mhm.
but it has breed to it also. So
Mhm.
if you don't know it, you might as well jump in there, because I think this will be one of those wines that after a while might be a cult wine and you can't get it. So nice time to jump in.
Denny, you want to talk about anything in particular? I know you were thinking about that you did the Leonetti or the Martini Monterosso, right?
Yeah, I think the Leonetti wine is the one wine in the Cabernet list that's not from California. It's from Walla Walla, Washington. And if you had to sort of say, what are the premier cru wine from Washington State, it would be Leonetti. And this particular bottle is a 215. So it's had some age. It's 100%, I'm sorry, it's 85% Cabernet with a little bit of Petit Verdot and Cabernet Franc. And it's a massive, massive wine. Leonetti's always made wines that overperform. They're not inexpensive, but he has great track record with Cabernet, Sangiovese, and Merlot. And this is a wine that there were only a few 6-packs left, and we got a good price on them, and we're able to offer them at a fairly good price. And it's a wine that you could put away and let it sit for another 20 to 30 years.
I want to mention really quickly, you'll notice when we have ratings, 97 JS, 93 RP, I think we have the code on the other, yeah, at the bottom of the other page, you'll notice JS is James Suckling, AG is Antonio Galoni. These are critics that we pay attention to, and that credibly gives you the source for the rating. Keep going, Denny, sorry.
One other thought on another wine that's a personal favorite is the Louis Martini Monterosso, which is a single vineyard property that the winery has owned forever, like 1930 something. And this is 100% Cabernet, and it's at the 1,300 feet up the Mayacamas Mountains. And it's a very, very rugged and highly thought of, one of the great vineyards in all of California.
Oh, it's like a premier cru California vineyard. Absolutely. Right. And this is a Magnum, right?
Yeah. And if you went online right now at the winery, a single bottle in the standard size of this is $125. And we were able to, these wines were left over from a tasting that apparently the wholesaler had done and had 4, 5, 6 packs left. And we were able to make an offer on that. So we're selling it at $129.97 for a double bottle, less your discount. It's a massive wine. If you want to have a great wine, you could put this away for 10 or 15 years. But it's 100% Cabernet that just sort of explodes out of the bottle.
Did you want to touch on Napa Nook briefly?
Pardon me?
Did you want to touch on Napa Nook?
Napa
briefly?
Nook is the, you don't want to use the word second wine, but it's the other wine that Dominus produces. Dominus is always in that 97, 98, $250 to $300 range. Napa Nook is their little brother. Reviews are all very similar, but it's much more forward, much more ready to enjoy. This, I think, is a 95 or 94 point wine, where the Dominus this year is 97 or 98. And yet it's a third of the price. So you get some of that same type of style. These wines are made by the owner of Chateau Petrus. And it's one of my favorite wines that you can open and enjoy almost immediately on release. Primarily Cabernet.
We got a very good question about Beringer. Actually, the question was, did Michael started making this wine after Ed Sabragia, their most famous winemaker, after Myron Nightingale left? So that's a pretty sophisticated California history question. There was a lady winemaker for 15 years
Laura
between
Laurie Hook.
Laurie Hook, thank you very much, between Sabragia and Michael. And I wanted, before we leave Cabernet and take a few questions, want to talk about the steel here, the Dow. This is Paso Robles, which has, you know, Central Coast, incredible terroir. And ironically, we're going to do Paso tasting next week with 2 women representing Paso producers. So, you know, don't turn your nose up at the Dow Cab at $24.97. But I'm going to stop sharing real quick and see if we have any questions about the cabs.
Just one thought on that. Mark Bellinger is just basically working with Knights Valley wines.
On which one?
Just the wines from Knights Valley. A place the size of Beringer probably has a team of winemakers.
Everyone's being restrained and elegant. Any questions? I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat room. You're good? You're happy? I see some parties having a good time. I see some thumbs up. Yay. Don't be shy. Hi, Kareem. Hello to the Bobers. All righty, let's move on to Bordeaux. Yes. So tell us about the 15s and the 16s, Rod. Why are we featuring them so heavily here?
Well, when the 15s came out, we knew it was a great vintage. We bought well in that vintage. The 16s came out. I was to be in Bordeaux for what's called a premiere, when you taste the barrel samples. And I thought 16 at that point was the best young vintage I had ever tried. The critics have since come out and given that vintage across the board outstanding scores, but the 15s are also just right there. I think in the current market, the 15s drink a little easier. The 16s really will be one of the great all-time vintages out of Bordeaux. You can compare it with 47 or 61 or 66. So we bought very heavily. And then in the last year, looking at the other vintages like 17, 18, 19, and the 20s that are coming out, both those vintages have stood the time, and we still think those are the best vintages. So Plum has really made a special effort to go out and buy as much 15s and 16s that we can afford and still have. So
At pre-tariff prices in most cases, correct?
yes, and a lot of these really aren't tariff effective, but some of them are. But and it will stand the test of time. That said, the first wine on the list here is the mix of 6 Bordeaux 2018s. Well, 18 actually is a very nice vintage. It's a nice, soft, easy. It's easy going. It's 6 bottles together. They're all Bordeaux, and they won a gold medal. I don't have the ability to show you a picture, but it's a nice, beautiful wood case. So this is a perfect gift item. The wines are stylish, forward, and if you do the 10% discount and divide them by 6, you'll find the wines average about $12 a bottle. So it's kind of gift that has a wow factor, and it continues to give and give and give. But we don't have any of those here tonight. But really, it's just, you should look at that just as just having a nice gift or just a Bordeaux around all of the time.
But we have them actually displayed in, more than one of the stores, so you can take a look at. You know what I can do, maybe?
I think it's also online too.
It's online. I'll try to take a picture and send it on the recap. But it's a great gift. I want to opine about 15s and 16s. I'm actually kind of stunned and very proud that we have this many, because to me, 15 is just a gloriously generous, easy drinking vintage, but A++ quality. It's just they drink well very young, but they will age as well. The 16s are a little bit harder, and as Ron said, ultimately the better vintage, but we're really splitting hairs. It depends when you want to drink these. So I'm going to jump in on 2 real quick 15s. The Cantamarel, Medoc, 5th growth, just great all-round Bordeaux and showing very forward and balanced right now. We had it on one of our virtual tastings a few weeks ago. And then I want to go into one that's a little bit on the nosebleed side, but considering that the first growths are emulating Pontet Canet in terms of their biodynamic practices and forward-thinking winemaking techniques, it's kind of a deal at that price point, 170, 169.97. And this is a 5th growth that acts like a first growth. They're doing some of the most forward-thinking winemaking, and I just love their expression of Pauillac. It is Cabernet, all black currant and cassis. Not all new oak. They're judicious with it. If I had to give, a special gift, I wouldn't hesitate to give Pontet Canet. Either of you want to talk about, Denny, you've been to Pontet Canet. You had lunch there, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a highlight of my trip last year. And it was an amazing, amazing trip. We were going through the vineyards in a golf cart, and they don't use tractors there anymore. They have horses that pull plows. So they built a whole set of stables and now are converting all their different parts of the acre, the different plots of their vineyard into only being used plowing with horses. And watching that was pretty amazing. The owner, Alfred Tesseron, is an amazing person.
He gave a tasting in person
yeah.
at Plum Market West Bloomfield.
I had him sign like 1,000 bottles that night. And so I got a good chance when I got there. He had lunch with us. It was a great experience at the winery. But he's one of the most forward-thinking winemakers in Bordeaux. And he's one of those people that everybody talks about now, and then they start making changes that he's already instituted. And he makes great cognac too.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Generally only available at duty frees.
But incredibly safe bet as ultra premium gift. And that's going forward into the future. Pontet Canet is consistently making wine as good as anybody in Bordeaux.
Right across the street from Mouton.
Yep. And then anything else in this section specifically, you guys, before we move to the right bank?
Well, there's stars galore in this section here.
Yeah.
Villascas, Ducru, Domaine de Chevalier, Brainier. Gloria has always been one of the great stars in Saint Julien. Palmer. Palmer's fabulous because it looks over to Margaux, Chateau Margaux, from across a little valley, and they face each other. And
100 points from Jed Gunnock. I didn't realize that. Cool.
And they always vie Palmer and Margaux at who's really making the best Margaux out there. Villa George is a nice value there. There you go with a nice sophisticated Bordeaux, 16 under $25, just a beautiful wine.
I'm going to move to the
Nice
right
bottle
bank.
too.
What's that? The Ville George is pretty looking.
Yes. Yeah, it's a nice Haut Médoc that drinks really well, nicely reviewed, and it's like 60% Cabernet, so it's not the typical Merlot-based, less expensive red. It's fairly sturdy but forward. Really nice bottle for that kind of money.
I'm going to tell you, as I share the screen, a very quick story. When I was at the original London Chop House, and the then owner, Lester Gruber, had me open something special for Christmas, and he kept saying, for the staff, he kept saying, better, better, better. And I settled on 66 Palmer, and I was decanting it behind the bar, and I almost dropped the bottle because the aroma coming up from that decanter in a flash, and I had been a sommelier for 10 years. I had an actual revelation why collectors collect. So, you know, there's something very, very special about Palmer. But as we go into the right bank, which is Merlot and Cabernet Franc dominated, this is wine number 3, if you've got it, Trois de Valandraud or 3 de Valandraud. And this couple, well, they say on their website, they're a wine obsessed couple, Jean-Luc Sinevin and Mireille Andraud. So the name Valandraud, which is their estate that they actually bought and created their reputation on in the early 90s, is based on the valley that they're in, and also her last name, Andraud. And he's referred to as the bad boy of Saint Emilion, one of the original garagistes, people who make tiny amounts of wine that are now canonized by the press. And here we are in Bordeaux. Here we are on the right bank. We were just a minute ago talking about the left bank Cabernet land. This is Merlot and Cabernet Franc land, and this is Saint Emilion. This is where we're located, on the right bank of the river. So, oops, I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to the list. But if you've got the Valandraud and you're tasting it, to me, this is just old world made in a plush new world style. It's forward, it's sexy, it's delicious. You know, if you want to give it to someone who's used to drinking new world wine, I think they'll love it. And it is, I couldn't find the blend on their website. Their website's a little bit cooler looking than informational, but the estate is planted to over 60% Merlot and 25% Cab Franc. So very little Cabernet Sauvignon. And that's true in general on the right bank. Anything you want to say about Valandraud? I bought it last year for Christmas gifts because I know it's a no-brainer, and I like the price point. It's $36. Rod, you were going to actually talk about this wine, and I took the ball. I'm sorry.
Well, there's a little bit left. It is awfully flamboyant. Jean-Luc Thunevin is a flamboyant person, and he makes flamboyant wine, and shows it in the bottle, whereas the main label really established him as being one of the superstars. This is called 3 de Valandraud, and it's a separate estate that they bought. So you have to call it something, so that's what they call it. But it gets the same treatment as the top wine. It's 70% new oak, about a year. Whereas the top one, I think, is probably 100%. The average age of vines are 30 years. You had mentioned Merlot, Cabernet Franc. It's got a lot of Cabernet Franc, 25%.
Well, Troy, which is an amazing amount. And yes, the Chateau Valandraud is 100% new French oak.
Yes, and the price points are quite a bit different, though. I think it's $100 difference between the two in terms of price. It is spectacular right now. I think it will improve a lot. It hasn't slipped into a quiet state yet. I'm surprised at that. But some people complain about Bordeaux now as being a little more international. This is unabashedly so. But they've done a very, very nice job in terms of that, having the balance and the nice black fruits and things like that.
Denny, you're a big fan of Fleur Cardinal, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I was going to say that those two wines together, the Fleur Cardinal and the Villa Marine, are two 215 Saint Emilions that are drinking really, really well right now. Biggest difference besides their locations in Saint Emilion is that the Villa Marine is 80% Merlot and has the balance being Cabernet Franc, where the Fleur Cardinal is 70%, has a touch of Cabernet, and the balance being Cabernet Franc. they're both drinking very well. The Villa Marine's a little more supple, a little more forward, a little more in your face. Fleur Cardinal has a little more structure, but in terms of a couple of wines that really demonstrate the qualities of the that side of the river in that vintage, they're really drinking well. Last year at the luxury tasting this time of year when we were, and this is what we're trying to emulate, we had about 8 or 10 different 15s and 16s. And this by far to me was the best wine of the whole night. Even
Which one, the Fleur Cardinal?
Yes,
Mhm.
even beyond wines that were twice its price.
You know, Denny and I and Rod have been talking about Cabernet Franc, and significant amounts of Cabernet Franc, which to me is more than 10%. They just bring a terrific perfume to the wine. You know, it's all about the smell of lavender and violets. It's so pretty. And if you're trying to decide between the two, Denny referred to the Fleur Cardinal as a little more structured, a little bit, you know, more Van de Garde for the future, whereas the Ville Marine to me is very much like the Valandraud in style. It's generous. It meets you, you know, 3/4 of the way. Any others on here? We're at about 7:25. We're going to keep marching along to around 7:45, but I'm just nudging us along. It's just we're at arguably the most important section here. Rod, you and I should talk about Bonald, because we were lucky enough on different trips to stay at this estate, and Pomerol is a teeny weeny appellation on the right bank, and this is an estate owned by their importer, correct?
Yeah, and so we were fortunate enough to go to France with
There's Pomerol.
with the importer who and it's owned by the negotiant there, and so it's a beautiful place to stay. Pomerols, as you can see on the other list of wines, they can be quite expensive. Petrus starts that out, but this is a nice. I think it's a very value-oriented Pomerol. It's not as flashy as, let's say, some of the other, but I think it's nice and solid, nice depth. It's still a very young wine. I think it's slipped slightly into a quiet state, but that means it's just going to have a beautiful long distance ahead of it. I can also jump in and say we have some 17s there too that just kind of an overlooked vintage, but we've got some of the superstars from that vintage: Chardonnay, Latour, Pomerol, Rouget. 17 is a very classic vintage. In terms of the old school mentality about Bordeaux, where the wines have structure, they have minerality, they're definitely old world wines. I think the 17 show that quite well. So a lot of people who are really steeped in old school Bordeaux, don't forget about the 17s, because there's some great wines made. It's just that, and they really are classic in their own right.
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, a lot of these estates are wines that we trust from vintage to vintage. You know, anybody can make wine in a great vintage, but when you have wines, 17 is a good vintage. It's just not a superstar vintage like 16. But a wine like Chardonnay, these folks are not going to let down their guard. If they consider a vintage not, you know, they didn't have to leave town to make the wine, they'll declassify a lot of their grapes to make spectacular wine. And you'll notice that this is rated 97 plus by the Wine Advocate. Not that we often dip into the 400s to buy a bottle of Bordeaux, but Chardonnay is special indeed. I'm going to open it up. Everyone's been very quiet, and everyone is still on, which is spectacular. We've been talking at you a lot. Anybody want to unmute, make a comment? Tell us how you like the Valandraud. Go ahead. I heard somebody. Somebody piped up. No? No questions? We're doing an A++ job, either that or we're lulling you to sleep, one or the other.
We have a
I'll say
question.
something.
Yes,
Well,
a question.
I'll say something about the wine from Emilion. It's nice to have a nice French wine that drinks beautifully, that does not smell like barnyard.
You're right.
I'm glad they imported something to us that was not barnyard.
You know, and the whole barnyard thing, you know, they're getting better at, well, they've realized that this is, unless it's just a trace amount, the little animal leather character is something that does not appeal to this market in particular. and can be considered even a flaw if it's too much. But this is squeaky clean.
It's beautiful. It's great.
Mhm. I'm
Yeah.
glad you like it. Wonderful.
I'd also jump in there and say that Marceau, the very first wine, Côte de France,
Mhm.
it's a magnum. So that, again, you can think of
Oh, let me see that. Which one's that one?
in the right bank, actually.
Hold on, let me go up a little
Well,
bit.
Côte de
Oh, right
France,
here. This is the Magnum at 55, right?
Yeah.
55 bucks.
that's also made in a fairly modern style. You'd be surprised, as I said before, it's starting to be slightly controversial, but much of Bordeaux right now they've gone softer, sleeker, and a little prettier. So many wines, they're nice and sophisticated. I love what they're doing right now, but today's Bordeaux is a little different from they were 20 years ago in terms of that barnyard aspect. It's something that you can't really say is just Bordeaux now. It depends on the estate.
By the way, this is a Magnum, as Rod said, and we've got this list peppered with a few Magnums here and there. They make impressive gifts. You know, they just look great, or they're terrific for a party. Any other questions on Bordeaux before we, pivot to Pinot Noir and Red Burgundy? No, then I'm going to shove us along and talk about that. I'm going to ask you to tell us how you found this wine, Denny. I mean, I've done research on it, but I actually tried to talk you out of this this wine.
Yes, you did.
And thank God you didn't listen to me. So
Wasn't the first time.
no, I know, but we collaborate nicely.
That's right.
Mhm.
So this is a Cambria wine, which is part of the Jess Jackson family, and this is called their Clone 4. It's Clone 4, Pommard Clone 4 Pinot Noir, and it's traditionally just a restaurant wine. And as we all have been suffering through with this situation this year, restaurants aren't doing as well as we'd like them to be doing. And so certain wines that had a traditional history with being sold as a pour in an upscale restaurant, this was one of them. And there was some available at the winery. And they were eager to move it along because they wanted to get to the next vintage. And our local wholesaler presented it. And I checked the website today, and at the winery, this is $56.
And we're selling it for $19.97.
Right. And, other than the label, which doesn't the most attractive, it's an amazing bottle of what I think Pinot Noir is supposed to taste like. My first time I tasted it, I thought it was good, but I thought it was closed. And the next day, it was unbelievable how much it had changed. So I opened mine at 4:00 this afternoon, and we're starting to get a nose out of it. And so we were able to get a fistful of cases. We've got a good quantity of it. And I think it just represents what my feeling of what Pinot Noir from California should taste like. There's no Syrah in it. It's 100% Pinot Noir. There's no sweetness. It's just lean, dry, fruit forward, and in my mind, still very age-worthy Pinot at a great price for $20.
It's highly aromatic. I put my nose in the glass. I hadn't tasted it, and it's Pinot. It's that combination of, dark strawberry fruit, open right with cold spice. You'll notice this is one of Jess Jackson's daughters. They have a female empowerment mission at this winery, Seeds of Empowerment. And we're going, by the way, the reason this is Pommard Clone 4 is that Pinot Noir is a grape variety that is susceptible to big time clonal variation. So they're telling you which clone. This is a great picture. The founder, Barbara Banke, and they must have purchased the winery from her, Katie and Julia Jackson. And then I just want to remind us all, here's California. We are in the South Central Coast, Santa Barbara. Prior to that, we were up north in San Francisco. We've got the Santa Maria Valley and Santa Ynez.
Yeah,
And
that's not up. It's not up.
It's not up?
No,
If you can't see it?
no.
I was screen sharing. Okay, let's try this again. Is it up now?
Here you are.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry, I thought you had it before. Here is the picture of the label. Here are Katie and Julia Jackson with Barbara Banke on the left. And here is Santa Barbara, which I wanted, and here's Cambria, by the way, inland. But what's dead cool about this growing region is you have these transverse valleys. You have mountain ranges that run east to west as opposed to north to south. Look at the Santa Maria Valley, and you have these the cool breezes, you know, tromping in from the Pacific Ocean inland. So this is a significantly cooler growing region, amenable to Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, much more so than you know, Napa or coast, you know, except for coastal Sonoma further north. So where you are in California, north and south, doesn't dictate the microclimate. It's proximity to the ocean and or effects like transverse valleys. I think that's a really cool thing. And these, I love this picture because this is showing Pinot vines with nestled between the hills. And let's talk about the rest of the Pinot selection, but this is delicious, easy drinking. Perfect, by the way, I will say it out loud, Thanksgiving wine. Gents, don't you agree?
Yep.
Rod, you want
Affordable
to take?
luxury.
No, it's a whole lot of luxury for not a whole lot of money. Rod, you want to talk about any of the Burgundies down here?
Well, I think if you talk to any of the Plum Market team leaders, the wine buyers, about their favorite Burgundy or their favorite value of Burgundy, they will all say Gachot Monet because it's a beautiful wine. It's very consistent. It's modest price. It gives you true Burgundy at a fairly modest price. I had the good fortune to talk to one of the owners there, and we went through all of their wines, and this is, I think, they own a little bit of Nuit Saint Georges Premier Cru and a little bit of Chambolle Moussigny, but I think they consistently do better with this one wine than anything else that they do. They've got a great, they've just got a great site there that just does well. It sits very far south in the Côte Nuit. It's at the very southern edge. So it's,
But it's site specific. It's not, you know, it's not, this is an estate bottled wine from a
Yes.
site, from a specific site in the south, in the southern
Exactly.
Côte de Nuit, right?
yes, very far south in the Côte Nuit. It actually resembles a bone wine to me.
Mhm.
They've actually recently bought a vineyard over in Beaune itself. So I think it to me, Nuit Saint George is a more mineral wine than this typically is. So I can't say it's classic Nuit Saint George, but as far as the Burgundy goes, it nails it. Just really a beautiful wine at a very modest price.
Yeah, we had this recently at one of our virtual tastings. I'm going to jump back up here for a minute, back to California. Two, I'd like to point out the Emeritus. They are the sole owners of the famed Hallberg vineyard. So Gary Farrell buys fruit from Hallberg for their Pinot. And Emeritus is actually the brainchild of Bryce, who is it Bryce Jones, who was the founder of Sonoma Cutrer.
Yes.
And he actually, we were at a tasting on the West Coast once, and he was, you know, waving the flag of white wine only production at Pinot Noir, and actually threw something at me because I started talking about red wine. But here he is. When he left Sonoma Cutrer, he created Emeritus. And I got to tell you, this is lush, generous, forward, incredibly sexy Russian River Pinot without being over the top. And this wine is dead cool. The Rain, R-A-E-N, which is whimsically named after R-A-I-N, Rain. It is owned and operated by Carlo Mondavi, fourth generation Mondavi family, the grandson of Robert, the son of Tim. He and his brother are producing site-specific, cool climate Pinot Noir on the Sonoma coast. And we are doing a tasting with Carlo Mondavi, not next week, but the following week. How cool is that? So I wanted to mention that. I think I had a couple of questions in the chat room. 18 was a terrific. Oh, God love you. Rod is keeping up with the chat room and he's answering a question about Burgundy. Normally we have Marshall paying attention to our chat. Any questions or comments on the Pinot Noir so we can quickly get to the 2 remaining categories? I think then I will just jump back because I really want to show you the website so we can talk about how you can order these easily if there's any confusion. But we chose not to taste anything from Beaujolais and the Rhone Valley. Denny, how do we feel about the first one, Chateau Thibain?
In the 3 or 4 years that we've been carrying, maybe it's longer than that, the wines from Kermit Lynch, this has just been one of the outstanding wines year after year. It's everything that a great Gamay should be. It's fresh, forward, bright, and yet it's got some depth that a lot of Beaujolais don't have. This is really a wonderful wine, and
this is part of the whole Kermit Lynch pack of Cru Beaujolais producers.
Their Cru Beaujolais are top notch and fairly priced.
And they literally changed the face of Cru Beaujolais perception globally because they.
This would be another great wine for Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Especially if you're in a situation where there are not real serious folks there, because it's soft, forward, put a little bit of a chill on it, but it's just a delicious bottle of Beaujolais.
I want to talk to the. I'm sorry. Did somebody say something, Rod?
No, it's Gustafson. Which one are you talking about?
We're talking about in the Beaujolais, the first one, the Chateau Thibain Côte de Brie, right here. That's at $25.97. It's sort of a no-brainer for Thanksgiving, but I mean, I adore Kermit Lynch's Beaujolais producers. Do you see it now, right here? You see, look at my little hand waving around. No, is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Cool,
It's
cool.
quite visible.
And then I wanted to jump down to Charvin because we showed this last week actually at the Chateauneuf du Pape tasting, where we had 3 very different red Chateauneuf du Papes. This one, absolutely no new oak, and they're not buying grapes from everywhere within this big appellation. They have one estate in the Northwest, and really beautiful, pure Grenache based wine with a little Syrah in it. But I think if you want to give something to a person who's not hip to the Southern Rhone, this is a safe bet. It is, it's showy, but it's got a purity of fruit that's terrific. And Rod, you wanted to talk about the Durand Cornas quickly, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Notice how we put in there Syrah, because not everybody knows that Cornas will be Syrah. All the wines from the Northern Rhone, which would be Cornas, Saint Joseph, Crozes Hermitage, and Hermitage, and Côte Rôtie are all Syrah wines, but they don't see that on the label. But the question, what I wanted to say here was that Cornas is probably the least known wine of the North, can be very expensive. And traditionally, it's been the toughest, earthiest, meanest wine out there. And it has gained its fame because of that. But in terms of an international market, that doesn't play as well. And people oftentimes don't have the patience to wait. Well, as in Bordeaux, things have changed a little bit, and Durand, I think, has crafted a new modern approach. All Syrah, so his wines have a sleekness and elegance and a precision that surprises me. So you're getting a more elegant rendition of Syrah from Cornas. People have talked about, well, what do you serve this with? Well, game and things like that. But if you think of something like duck, or again, Thanksgiving, if you have a turkey that is truly free range, that's going to have a little bit more dark, then you can go ahead and serve this wine like you would a Chateauneuf du Pape. But so just a beautiful wine that I think doesn't have enough recognition, and it really.
Well, I mean, that's true for the Northern Rhone period. I'm going to jump in here because that's one of this and dry Riesling are 2 of the big heartbreaks for professional wine people, because we adore them and we can't get our guests to trust us quite often. But I think to your point, Rod, Durand's Northern Rhone Syrah from Cornas is delicious. You know, it isn't, something that you have to think your way through because it's got a lot of smoke, and it's not confusing aromatically. I'm going to force us, because it is 7:45, to move to Italy and talk through it quickly because we have one wine left to taste in Spain and Portugal. But I'm going to take the ball on these two, which are up top in terms of value. The Allegrini La Grolla is something we got a stunning deal on because it was slightly older vintage. This is a famed Amarone producer from the Veneto, and La Grolla is a single site. And the style of this wine is kind of baby Amarone-like. By that I mean dried, dried fruit, both dark berries and tart berries like cranberry, a little bit of oak. It's concentrated, it's delicious, and it reminds me of, if you were to have it with actually sage dressing and cranberry sauce in Turkey, it would just melt into it. And then I don't know what the going rate is for this online, but it's basically, our price is a third of what it commonly goes for, because Allegrini is a very noble name. And the Passo Pischiaro from Etna, if I'm going to move to Sicily one of these days, all wine aside, because it's truly one of the most beautiful places on the planet, but red wines from Etna, Active Volcano, are basically Pinot Noir with a really spunky attitude. So if you take a red Burgundy and you add a little scratchier tannin to it, that's Etna Rosso from a great grape called Nerello Mascalese. Denny, you wanted to talk quickly about the Guidalberto, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've been talking about tonight are these wineries that have a premier wine and a second wine. On the list here, you've got this San Guido, Tenuta San Guido Guadalberto. And if you go down 3 more wines, you see it also from the same producer. There's Sassicaia, which is one of the most famous of all the big dollar super Tuscans that is produced. This is their second wine, and I believe they make a third wine as well. This is primarily Cabernet and 60% Cabernet and 40% Merlot. We've been featuring this for 3 or 4 years, and it's just a well-made Italian Cabernet Merlot blend that's very forward, very easy to drink, has a lot of class, and it has the sort of the style and the breed of Sassicaia. But you can buy a case of this, or you can buy a bottle of the other one.
And it's got a little Tuscan dusty earthiness to it.
Oh, it does.
None of this barnyard business, but it's
very
really
different than California Cabernet,
right. Mm-hmm.
but very distinctively good and easy drinking. And it's age worthy as well. And as you can see, gets good scores year after year. We sold a ton of the 216, and 218's drinking very nicely now, and a great price at $40 at this point, less your discount.
Rod, you want to jump in on a couple more that draw your attention?
Well, I think if you're a vintage hunter, then you probably already noticed that we've got a couple of 2015 Brunellos there.
Isn't that like the vintage of the 2 centuries or something like
For
that?
them, yes, for Brunello itself, Tuscany was 16 and 15, but for Brunello, it really was the 15 vintage, like the 16 for Bordeaux. Both these producers are excellent producers, and we were able to grab them at great prices. I suggest that you buy them now. These wines aren't going to last forever. The 16s are getting ready to come out in Brunello. And so this might be your last chance to find Brunello. And these are 2 spectacular prices. The other super vintage out here would be 16 up in the Piedmont area. So we have the Renato Rotti Barolo there, the Marcanesco. We've liked that wine down through many years. It's a modern style, so it's not the big, tough, earthy Barolo that many people think. It's sleek, fairly forward, but 16 in the Piedmont, especially Barolo Barbaresco, absolute great vintage, one of their vintages of so far this century. So I don't miss either of those 2 if you're really looking for some top vintages.
I've got to tell you, if you're wondering, Rod and Denny vetted this list, and I basically corrected the spelling and opined a teeny little bit, but this is really born of their acumen practiced over not centuries, but a couple
Thanks, Matt.
decades. You're very welcome. Well, I'm right there with you. I'm no spring chicken, but it's really a list that was not thrown together. It was done very thoughtfully. So every wine on this list means something. I'm going to make us taste the PSI from Ribera del Duero. And let's talk about that quickly. But I have to tell you, this is, Rod, I know you're going to opine on this, but I've got to also jump in because for two reasons. First of all, PSI, I'm a Greek peasant, and that is the 23rd. It is the 23rd letter in the Greek alphabet. I still can't find why Peter Sissek called this wine PSI, but this was a very special production for him because he is famous for a Dane making wine in the Ribera del Duero. So here we are in north central Spain. And if you look at this, here's Portugal. This river's called the Douro. It moves into Spain where it's called the Duero. And the dominant grape here is the same as in Rioja. It is Tempranillo, but here it's called Tinto, what's it called? Oh my God, brain death.
Tinto Tempranillo, isn't it?
It's Tempranillo. It just has one of its many synonyms. And this is,
Yeah, I think it's just Tinta.
and this is the guy who's famous for a super expensive wine, Dominio de Pingas. But I just love this picture of the winery that's sleek and elegant. Obviously, he has money behind it, but is melts into the landscape and these old vines. Anything you want to tell us about PSI, Rod, while I retaste it with enthusiasm?
I apologize. I didn't do my homework in this.
No, I have my homework. I have it down that you wanted. Oh, I can
Oh,
talk about
okay.
this. No, we're good. I used this for a private tasting recently, but this is neat.
Yes.
This is Peter Sissek, who decided he wanted to give back to this region in Spain that opened his arms to this young Dane who came there in the 1990s and made an incredibly famous wine. It seemed overnight, Dominio de Pingas. But he wanted to make something that was accessibly priced, but also as a tribute to the region. So what he did is he sort of gently convinced all these growers who were not using natural production methods to farm in different ways. And he paid them for their fruit based on the quality of their fruit, not based on tonnage. So this is his Valentine to the region. This is a guy who's a passionate believer in organic and biodynamic winemaking. We're not talking about big production. Look at the soil here in Ribera del Duero. But when you taste PSI, I'm curious who's got it in their glass. To me, it is old world meets new world. It's got that dustiness of Spain, and it's got that red pretty fruit of Tempranillo that in Rioja. It's got a chunk of wood on it, but not too much. Dried fruit, and it's medium bodied, and it's absolutely delicious. The tannins are not sharp. Rod or Denny, are either of you drinking it?
Well, I've had the wine before, and I've had this wine through many vintages, and it's always been kind of gradually emerges. This vintage is unusually forward for that wine, so it's luscious fruit up front, but then you get all of those other the fungal, the minerality below, and it's a beautiful wine. I'd have to add though that the main estate Pingas is really thought in the same breath as Vega Sicilia.
Right.
Those are the two top estates in the Ribera del Duero. So to find something of this quality from that region, from one of the great stars, it's exceptional. So my hats off to them, because
there is Vega Sicilia right there.
This has come down in price in the last few years too.
Yeah. This Macan is from Rioja, and it's a collaboration between the Rothschild family of Lafitte and Vega Sicilia. And it is, it's very sexy, modern, polished, gorgeous wine. If you want to give something different that tastes like more to a friend, this is not old school Rioja. It's modern in the best sense of the word. Denny, you wanted to talk about Laurel?
I would just mention that, again, we have the big brother and the little brother on the, from Clos Erasmus. the Laurel is the second wine from Clos Erasmus from Priorat, and it's primarily Grenache and has a little bit of Cabernet thrown in. But this is really a great forward style Priorat that has a lot of intensity, always well reviewed, and always within a couple of points of its bigger brother. And again, you have that situation where it's a third of the price. We don't have a lot of this. 217 is a nice forward vintage, and this really represents the area of Priorat very well at an affordable price. So I would strongly suggest you take a look at that.
And Priorat's northeastern Spain to southwest of Barcelona. It's an area that's on my bucket list in terms of going to visit. I am going to quick share the screen on our website. And if you know the tech, oh my God, it did it. The tech gods are paying attention. If you go to the website and you click on luxury holiday sale, when you go to the when you go to the home page, this picture will come up after it talks about turkeys and holiday sales in general. If you just wait for the pictures to flip through, you'll see luxury holiday wine sale. And then you can select your store. And here we go. Let's see if
Preferably
I can
West Bloomfield.
What store in Ann Arbor? And here we have the categories, just the way you experience them on the PDF on the wine list. So let's go. We just talked about Spain and Portugal. So let's go here since that's fresh in our minds. And we just talked about the PSI. Here it is, Dominia de Pingus. And if you add it to the basket, so when we say what you're saving 13%, you're saving that off of the frontline pricing, but you are also, it's not going to let me go to, let's see. It's going to let me add this to the basket. And then
Your basket's 3 now.
Where's my basket?
It's up to your right, upper right.
Upper right. Hold on. Oh, here I am. Thank you, Rod.
Sure.
So proceed to checkout, right? And see, I knew you were smarter than I am about this. We are unable to fulfill catering or to pay no attention to that. This is the important thing, the discount code, correct?
Yeah.
So after all is said and done, you can fill out everything, all the important information. But when you get to the discount code, what's the discount code?
Luxury wine.
Luxury wine.
Yep,
One
and
word.
it's one word and it's not case sensitive, and you will get an additional 10% off. So if people are trolling the website and they come up to the sale, they're not going to get the 10% off unless they have that discount. And if you go ahead, Denny.
No, they need the code to get the discount.
Right, they need the code to get the discount. There are no Australian wines in the sale. I'm sorry about that. Not this time around. Somebody wants to get my thoughts on Portuguese wines, which we just bought a couple 3. So I will put those in the follow-up email. And I want to show you one more thing before we open it up to anything you want to talk about, which is next week's tasting, because I'm actually super personally excited about this. This is 2 women from Paso Robles, Central Coast. I saw terroir variation there that is staggering, especially on the coast where these 2 wineries are located. Epic Estates is one of the ultra premium producers. Ancient Peaks is more affordable. This is a 14,000 acre ranch, and you have the winemaker and the VP co-owner respectively. And there's going to be something for everyone. Let's see if I can page this down. If you look at the prices, they're actually a little dysfunctional because the Epic wines are running 33 to 58 and the Ancient Peaks wines are 19 to 20. But these 2 women are fast friends. Their estates are like near each other and they're thrilled to collaborate. And I met them when I was out there in January when we were still, getting on planes. So I really hope you join us next week. So now we are done sharing and we're starting to get people drop off. So I want to open it up to anything you want to talk about. Anyone? Come on, you can't be that shy. You've been drinking wine.
Madeline,
Yes.
I have a question, Madeline.
Okay,
The picture you put up of the vines in Spain,
yes.
they were head pruned. Is that common over there?
It is because, you know, these are vines that are, and when we talk head pruned, we're talking about vines that, you know, are not over manipulated to everyone who doesn't speak this language. These are vines that are really unirrigated for all practical purposes, and unlike and not unlike Grenache, want you to leave them alone. Don't pay attention to them. And they do just fine. I should bring that up again so you can see
And in
what
some
we're
places,
talking about.
they're growing like they're on sand dunes.
Right. It's
There
just
you are.
amazing. There you are. So these are vines that, you know, really require very little manipulation and are happier if you don't manipulate them. So they reminded me actually of bush vines in Barossa in Australia. That was a sophisticated question. Thank you. Anyone else? There are no silly questions, by the way, only the one you choose not to ask.
I've got a clarification if people are doing orders.
Okay,
I believe if you are on the site and you order wines from a different part of the site, put it in your basket, and you come back and order wines from our sale, and you enter your discount in, it will automatically just give you the discount for the wines from the sale.
not on the wines from the normal wines, correct?
Yeah, so you can combine all of those wines. You don't have to make two different orders. You can combine all of those into just one order. And we'll do the math part for you for your 10%.
What was the discount code again?
The discount code is luxury wine, one word. Luxury wine, no space, and it's not case sensitive. And that will give you an additional 10% on top of these sale prices. And as you know, those of you who have been friends of us for a long time, we don't discount much. And the reason for that is we're pretty damn proud of our prices, because you get case price from bottle one. Terry, you unmuted. Do you have anything fun to say, or did you have a good time tonight?
A little bit of brown sugar.
Anyone
Hey,
else?
Madeline.
Yes.
It's Amy. Hey,
Hi,
Madeline, it's
Amy.
Amy. How are you?
Great, nice to see you.
Great tasting. And my girlfriend Lisa
Hi,
and
Lisa.
I and our husbands, who are out of the picture.
Hello, husband.
we have a question. How long does the sale go for?
Gents, what is that? November 5th to November 15th?
A week from
Yes.
Sunday it ends, through
A
next
week from
Sunday.
Sunday. Okay. All right,
Now-
good. Because thank you.
Again, what happens there is that the discount expires beginning the 16th. But we'll still have the wines for sale, so you can still buy them. But if you want that discount, that's when you have to buy.
And remember, there are some things that we're going to be skinny on. So like the Matthiasson Chardonnay, one of my best friends is checking to see if we can get more. But, you know, there may be some things that you try to buy and we run out of.
Okay.
Did someone
Good.
want to ask a question? You're very welcome. And I interrupted.
Nope, good.
Thanks, Amy.
Madeline, hi, this is Elaine.
Hi, Elaine.
I was in the Plum Market store on Plymouth Road today at Ann Arbor, and they didn't have the wines for the wine tasting for next week. When will they be in the stores?
They'll be in by Tuesday at the latest, and I'm sorry about that. They were a little dragged foot about that.
Okay, thank you.
No, not at all.
And I really enjoyed the wine from Spain. It was excellent.
Isn't it delicious? I've been
Oh my
using it
gosh.
actually on, I've been using it on private tastings, and I should bring this up. A lot of people are not doing, you know, restaurant get-togethers for their companies or their friends. So we've been getting inquiries about private virtual tastings with or without food. That's been working really well. And one of the wines I've used more than once is that PSI, because it delivers at what, under 40 bucks. And it makes for a delicious drinking or a good gift, because that's how I'm always thinking, on-premise creature that I am, formerly a million years in restaurants, is wines that over deliver. So if anyone has any questions about the possibility of hosting a private virtual event, just give me a response to my email, because my, you know, you can just reply and I'll be there.
Oh, do I have something? Is it my
Anyone
fault?
else?
Oh, no, I have a comment.
Okay,
All right. So the Pinot Noir is
Yeah.
great. I was thinking like after the Valderrama and the Knights Valley, it's like it would get drowned out because it's Pinot Noir, but it standed up nicely.
actually, that's a very sophisticated comment. Thank you, because we have this idea that we, that sort of time-honored conventional wisdom that you do lighter wines before heavier, richer wines. But, I will tell you a little secret. Wine professionals that we try to, be, will not uncommonly taste white wines after red wines because it makes them pop. And I think lighter reds can hold their own if they have good fruit after richer reds. The only caveat is sometimes if you're tasting a wine like that Pinot after a red that's got a lot of aggressive tannin, it'll be hard. It won't be easy on your palate. But none of these wines are tannic tonight. So thank you for noticing that.
I see what you did there.
Yep. Denny gets all the
No, but
credit for the Cambria.
I think that
Noir.
Pinot was so on point
Mhm.
that it stood alone next to the Cabernet. So
Right?
I was a little concerned about the order as well.
Mhm. I have faith in the wine. I didn't have any concern whatsoever.
It's good wine. If it's good, yeah.
If
Thank
you
you.
want to surprise yourself, go back to that Chardonnay because it's tasting like $1 million. And I'm a big retaster, and quite often I will taste wine either the second day or after reds if it's a white to see if it can hold its own. Any other comments or questions? Kareem, Fritz, nice to see you on. David, as always. Robin, is Norm being quiet tonight? I didn't hear him speak up. We've got lots of friends on here. Todd Belden, very nice to see you. Hello, Diane and family. Well, and Paul, thank you for your for piping up your comment. I appreciated it. Elaine, it's always nice that you're straightforward with your questions. I really appreciate it. I'm going to send a follow-up email. It is now after 8, so I'm sure you want to get on with your evening, but I want to, from my heart, thank my friends and colleagues, Denny and Rod. One of the great joys and privileges in my life is being able to work with these guys. But it's really play, it's not work, And I refer to the three of us as village elders because we've been around for a while, we love wine, and nothing rings our bell more than sharing with you, and that's the God's honest truth. So if you have any follow-up questions, I'll give you our contact information in the follow-up email, which I'm going to write as soon as I say goodbye and send it to you so I don't forget. I will attach the PDF. I will forward next week's tasting. Elaine, thank you for looking through the wines, and they will be in the stores by Monday, Tuesday. Though I think actually West Bloomfield has all of them if anyone wants to trek out there.
She would do like a Cantoro's where you have the restaurant.
If you want us, well, they're a little bit of a competitor. Not that there isn't room for everyone at the table,
Matt, I just wanted to say that Rod and I are really not in the store as much as we were in the past, but the stores are in good hands. But if anybody wants to reach out to us individually, we're more than happy to handle the situations. But all the stores have very capable people who can help them with their selections, and we greatly appreciate their support.
Splendid job.
Madeline, also, when I was in the store today, they gave me this beautiful brochure with all the wines listed.
Oh, excellent. So you had the PDF, great. And we are trying to print those out and have them in the stores. So where were you picking up in Plymouth, Ann Arbor, Plymouth Road?
The one that's near campus.
Okay, yep. So we have Jorge to thank.
On Plymouth Road, yes.
On Plymouth Road, we have Jorge to thank for that. So hope we will nudge Goose, our wine team leaders, to print more copies of those off. So in case you don't make it, you can they can provide you with one. Good. Are we happy? Thank you for your company, everyone.
Let's go back to the reserve in Birmingham.
Oh, Oh, yeah. Well, no, you know what? God love you for saying that. One of these days, 2020, what more can happen? I shouldn't say that because like little demons and angels are listening, but we will see each other again. We will break bread together again, right? However, this
Yes.
is not a bad second, you know, we get to see each other, but I sure would like to hug you all, you know, and one of these days it will be safe. We'll be able to gather in person, and that will be a happy day. And we will have paid a lot of karmic debt in 2020. This is the Ann Arbor hippie talking. So, per usual, to your good health, y si bien, a bientôt. And please join me next Thursday to welcome Amanda and Jordan from Paso. Killer ladies, great friends. And I think the new American terroir. Rod and Denny, thank you very much for your
Thanks.
company
It's
and
great.
your eloquence. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Cheers.